Am I the idiot for giving my son my mother's necklace? I lost my parents when I was very young and have spent decades recovering from the trauma. One coping mechanism I had was holding on to all of their things. My parents were well off, and I inherited almost all of their possessions and assets. My therapist and I have talked about why I feel the need to cling to these things that have no use to me, and I've said that I might be open to giving some of their things to someone who would use and treasure them. I didn't have a concrete plan or timeline for doing so though. My mother owned a pearl necklace that was passed down from mother to daughter for generations. My great-great-grandmother brought it with her to America when her family fled Germany, so obviously it has immense sentimental value. My mother didn't have a daughter, so the necklace, like everything else, has been sitting in my house for decades unworn. So, onto my son. He is very into style and fashion. He wears lots of different types of outfits. He'll wear a suit and tie to a work function and then a miniskirt and mesh shirt to go clubbing with his friends. He wears jewelry sometimes and owns a few elegant, classy pieces, no pearls though. A few months ago my son was showing me an all-white suit he bought to wear to a friend's party. It was a really nice suit. All of a sudden I was struck with the idea that my mother's pearls would look great with that suit. So I went and got them. My son became very emotional, and I decided that he should have the pearls to keep. I don't wear necklaces, but he does. I think my mother would want him to have the pearls. When I talked to my therapist about this, she said I made a huge step forward in processing my grief. Now that I've made that first step, it feels a lot more doable to go through my parents' other things. I feel good about my decision. My cousin, mom's niece, called me today, livid. She said I shouldn't have given the pearls to my son. She said if they went to anyone, they should go to her or her sister. She claims that they've now left the family. I don't really understand her perspective. I get that the pearls are supposed to go from mother to daughter, not father to son. But that chain was already broken when my mom died without a daughter. I don't see how nice is better than grandson in this scenario. Still, my cousin is a really nice person, so there must be something I'm not getting. Is this like a woman thing? Can a woman explain why I might be an idiot? Now for a few comments before the update. Not the idiot. I almost cried reading this. I thought it was really sweet. I don't understand why your son having them means they aren't still in the family. I say they are. Comment 2. As a woman, I can firmly say. Not the idiot. They were passed down in your family. She's a branch family, there is nothing entitling her or her daughter to the pearls. Just make sure your son understands the value and passes them on to one of his kids. Now for the update. Several people suggested getting the pearls restrung. My son did take them to a jeweler prior to wearing them to the party because he assumed the silk would be in poor shape after so many years. After reading all of these comments I called to offer to have them restrung, but he already had. I insisted on reimbursing him, since a gift should be given in good quality. But this update is really about my cousin. We had lunch today and talked about everything. So, a little more backstory with that side of the family. My mother's brothers didn't approve of her decision to marry my father. They didn't go to the wedding, and my mother wasn't invited to my cousin's coming-of-age party. I was 5 at the time, so I don't remember it very well. But my mom was really upset and wrote a long letter to my cousin that she still has. She showed it to me. After that, my cousin stopped talking to her father for years. My mother's funeral was the first time they spoke after that, and he died a few years later. My cousin expressed guilt over not having any children and not passing on our heritage. She said that she's worried everything her father thought would happen to our family, that we have assimilated too much. Being passed over for the pearls, which she was never truly in line for, but I didn't want to be pedantic, felt like a punishment to her. Now they belong to someone outside of the tribe, and she's worried the history of them, the story of what our ancestors went through, will eventually be lost to time. We both expressed a lot of grief to each other, and I think we gave each other some much-needed catharsis. But without a doubt, her objections weren't based in greed or prejudice, just sadness and fear. She said she wouldn't bring up the pearls again, as it's a done thing now. I offered her some other pieces of my mother's I thought she might like, and she said she needed to think about it. We parted on good terms, even laughing about how it's good we hashed this out now, before we all get wasted together in a couple of weeks. A lot of people thought my cousin was a bad person based on my previous post, and I feel terrible about that. She really isn't. She's just grieving. I think that's everything, but if I forgot to address something you can ask about it in the comments. Oh, and I did give the earrings to my daughter as well as my dad's watch to my second son, his class ring to my third, cufflinks, heirloom, to my fourth, and my mom's bracelet she got the day I was born to my youngest. So everyone got something. Comment 1. You made absolutely the right choice with the necklace, evidenced by the care your son immediately put into preserving the piece. Many people wouldn't even have thought about having the integrity of a jewelry item checked before wearing it. I'm supposed to get my grandfather's watch. You can bet it's going to be restored and all parts serviced before I wear it. Well done for preserving family tradition in keeping with a modern era. Comment 2. This is so sad but at the same time good. I wish you and your family luck, and hopefully, you and your cousin will be able to move past this. May I suggest maybe seeking a professional to talk about those issues? If they haven't had therapy, maybe it can help her face her grief and fear. Now, for the next story. Am I the idiot because I let my son ask my stepson for help when cooking for me? Yesterday I was exhausted. I am 3 weeks from my due date, but my maternity leave doesn't start for another week. I came home and sat down on the couch and didn't want to get up for any reason. My son, 7, asked me to play with him, but I said I didn't have any energy. He asked if I was hungry, and truthfully I was, so I said yes, but I'm too tired to cook. My son offered to make me something to eat. I thanked him and told him to ask my husband to watch him in the kitchen, because he's too young to use kitchen appliances on his own. He came back with my stepson, 13, saying that my husband was busy and asked if his stepbrother could supervise him instead. I said okay. My stepson asked if I was sick, and I said I was just run down but would be okay. They made me some veggies and rice. I'm unsure how much each kid did, and I thought all was well. I felt much better after eating and was able to clean the kitchen. That night my husband asked me why I asked his son to make me something to eat. I said I didn't, he was just watching my son. My husband said my stepson ended up doing almost everything for him, because he was worried he would get hurt, and my stepson was in the middle of a school assignment when my son interrupted him. I said I didn't know that he was busy. He didn't tell me that. He didn't have to help my son when he asked. My husband said my son told my stepson I was sick, and that's why he stopped his assignments, and then he didn't want to be rude. I ended up snapping at him that maybe he should have come out to check on me himself when my son went to ask him for help. He said that has nothing to do with the situation and, "My kid isn't your servant." I was so pissed and told him to frick off and not talk to me the rest of the weekend. I made pancakes for breakfast. My husband hates pancakes, for myself and the boys, but he just made himself an omelet and didn't say anything. The thing is, my stepson must have said something to him, or he wouldn't have even known they cooked for me. So my stepson must honestly feel wrong. Am I crazy? Was I unreasonable to let my son ask my stepson for help? I feel like I'm in the twilight zone. Now for a few comments before the update. Not the idiot. I can understand why your younger son said you were sick. He probably thought you being run down and exhausted was you feeling unwell. What I would recommend is talking to your stepson and letting him know that you found out he did almost all the cooking and really thank him for helping you when you needed it. Let him know he is appreciated and make sure he's okay. Comment 2. Not the idiot. If your husband, the man who got you pregnant, was so damned concerned about his 13-year-old having his homework interrupted, then your husband could have taken a few minutes to make you a damned omelet. Or something. Because it sounds like he can prepare food for himself. It sounds like the children, at least, care for you. Now for the update. Thanks to everyone who commented on my post. I was so exhausted all weekend, and the post's comments gave me something to read when I couldn't sleep but was too tired to move. I took several people's advice and spoke to my stepson. I actually took him out for brunch on Sunday. I asked him how he was feeling about everything and the new baby. My stepson said he was kind of nervous to meet the baby, because he's never lived with a baby before and doesn't know what they like. He said his stepbrother was easy to make friends with, because he likes games and toys. But babies can't play most games or with any of his toys, so how will he make the baby like him? I told him that the baby will love him, because he's going to be his older brother, so the baby will grow up with him as a role model. He was reassured by this. I also thanked him for helping me when I was overwhelmed. I told him he can always come to me for help when he is overwhelmed with anything. He ended up telling me that he is nervous about the 8th grade. We have a high school program in our district. You need high grades to qualify for that. My husband wants him to get in, and it's pretty much dependent on his school performance next year. We talked about his nervousness and agreed we would talk about it more in the future as well. I'm really glad we had our talk, and it was in large part because of all of your encouragement. So thanks again. Comment 1. Open and honest communication is always going to help. The key is making sure to use it while you have the energy because, as you well know, there will be times when you just need to shut down for a while. Glad you sorted things out with your stepson. I highly recommend one-on-one time with each kid like this as they grow up. It really makes them feel heard. Next step, sort things out with your husband. Comment 2. Others have commented on whether you've talked to your husband about how shitty he was to you, as they should. But is he putting too much pressure on his son? Does your stepson even want to go to that other school? Grades and best schools aren't everything. He's such a kind and caring boy, I'd hate for him to suffer because of your husband's demands. Try to protect him, please. Now, for the next story. Would I be the idiot if I didn't get my sister a wedding gift? Okay, so I, male 25, am a wedding planner, so when my sister, female 32, announced she was getting married, most of our family, including her included, assumed I'd help plan it for her. I initially didn't really want to as her wedding is right in the middle of busy season, so I'd miss out on gigs that would pay, but then I decided that she's my sister, and this would be a good wedding gift and would just help with the wedding stress. She was so happy when I agreed and we started going over her plans and themes. I found some venues and we went to look at them. I took care of all of the catering, so all she had to do was taste test and pick. I was also able to use my connections to get her special deals and stuff like that. At first it was pretty smooth, but as time went on it just got more and more stressful. She wouldn't communicate with anyone and almost got her photographer to quit. I had to convince him to stay. She'd constantly change her mind on things and then get mad they were changed, as I should have known she was just being indecisive and that I should have stuck with the first option. While I was setting up the registry, she told me I could have first dibs on what gift I was getting her. I looked at her confused and said that my help planning was my gift. She then said that a lot of families helped out and they are still getting gifts. I told her that other family members helped move furniture or lend me their car to pick up supplies. I was doing most of the work and was missing out on actually getting paid helping her. She said she's grateful for my help, but that this wouldn't really constitute a gift unless I was paying for things like her dress or the venue. And she said it didn't matter when I brought up that my connections have literally saved her thousands when you add them up. She's now calling me cheap and is getting our family involved. I don't know what she told them, they won't tell me. But they keep saying how selfish I am to make my sister's big day all about me. If I could afford it, I wouldn't mind getting her something. But the cheapest thing in the registry is almost $200 and I'm not well off. Plus my loss of income, one can't afford something like that run. I want to support her, but I don't think I'm gonna get her a gift. Would I be the idiot if I didn't? There's no update for this story, so here's the comments. Not the idiot. Make an itemized bill for her outlining the hours you've spent, the income you've lost by turning down paid gigs, and the savings you've got her through your contacts. Print the final total in big, bold numbers, then print, gifted, in red letters across the front. Frame it and put it on a stand at the gift table at her wedding so everyone can see how generous you've been. Anyone who tries to argue that you're being selfish, tells them to read it out loud. If they accuse you of being petty, tell them it would have been necessary if it had been appreciated by the bride and themselves. Comment 2. Not the idiot. While I would have maybe been clear up front that getting your services for free was the gift, your sister's level of entitlement is ridiculous. Frankly, I'd hand your sister a bill for the work you did that highlights the money you saved her with your industry discounts, and say either she can pay you and you'll get her something off the registry, or this and your continued free labor can be the gift. Helping out is when someone comes over to make favors, helps transport items, or decorate. You are providing a service and coordinating an entire event for her. Am I the idiot for making my pregnant wife cry by calling her less of a person? This all boils down to my wife's father. I have a 6-year-old son that started living with me as his primary guardian when he was 3 and his mom went back to school. I met my wife through work, and I also met her father, who worked at the same company in a higher role than both of us. My wife knew I had a son, but I said I wouldn't introduce them unless we became a serious couple, because that wouldn't be fair to him. When my wife did meet my son, they got along really well. I invited her and her father over for dinner one night, and her father met my son for the first time. He was weird and awkward around my son and made strange comments about his appearance. His mom is black. I confronted him after the dinner, and he made some pretty pathetic excuses. After that, I asked him to not contact me outside of work matters and asked her for space. A couple weeks later, my wife told me she had completely cut her father off for his beliefs. Our relationship became stronger than ever. When we got engaged, she said she didn't want her father at the wedding. We ended up both transferring to other companies. As far as I knew, he was gone from both of our lives for good. My wife is pregnant and due in a month. She has already started maternity leave and has been looking for a new job to start after maternity leave because she doesn't want to stay at her current company. Yesterday she sat me down and told me her dad got her an interview for a job at our old company. She also told me she has been talking to him for a couple months and wants to know how I would feel about him knowing our future child. I told her the truth. I told her I felt betrayed and I felt like she betrayed my son, who she claimed to think of as her son as well. I told her that she would even ask me, which makes her less of a person in my eyes. She started crying and asked me what kind of insensitive jerk would call the woman pregnant with his kid less of a person. I told her that was how I felt, and although the language was harsh, I felt it matched what she was asking for. After cooling off, I'm now unsure if my word choice was warranted and wondering if I was an idiot for speaking to her that way while she is pregnant and more emotionally vulnerable. I could have just said I wasn't okay with what she was proposing without insulting her character. Now for a few comments before the update. Not the idiot. As the saying goes, if there's a racist at the table with 10 other people, you have 11 racists. Your father-in-law has shown he's a racist. Even your wife knows that her dad is a racist as she had cut him off. Your father-in-law has not made any demonstration of repentance, yet your wife wants to invite that toxic presence into your home where it can poison your eldest child. What did she expect you to do and say? You're right that your words were harsh. But harsh was appropriate. It takes a lesser person to want to invite toxicity into the home, and that's what your wife did. She is the one who needs to apologize for even the suggestion of her father coming back into your personal lives. That she's pregnant is not an excuse for the extreme breach of trust she committed. Comment 2. You're the idiot. Less of a person. Really? You have every right to be upset with her, but that's truly a disgusting thing to say to your pregnant wife. Now for the update. My wife and I went to couples counseling. When we called to book, there was one counselor that had a last-minute opening and the rest had long waits. There was a reason for this. If you ever need to book a therapist, don't book the one with immediate availability. Anyway, so we went this morning. First and foremost, the therapist would not listen to us as we tried to explain why we were there. So much time was wasted because she kept insisting on talking about and asking about topics that weren't what we needed to talk about. My wife and I both repeatedly tried to explain the issue, and the therapist kept saying, "The surface issue is rarely the problem, it's the issue underneath that." It took half an hour for us to get her to actually address what occurred. When she finally listened to us explain what happened, she flat out said that I was wrong. My wife was right. I need to apologize for what I said and accept that her dad would always be important to her and had a right to be in his grandchild's life. I'm pretty sure therapists are supposed to be a bit more neutral. Anyway, she could tell I was irritated and asked what I was feeling. I said I felt deceived. I felt like my wife pretended to be someone, and now I'm meeting the real her. My wife started to cry and the therapist said my answer was unproductive. I asked my wife, "What about you? How do you feel?" She said she felt lost. She said she's lost her family one by one because they did things she couldn't accept. Realizing the child she was carrying would never know her biological family upset her, and it made her wonder if her standards are too high. The therapist jumped in and said it's important to meet people where they are out, and cutting people out isn't the answer. The therapist ended things saying we had a lot of work to do but could fix things. When we left, my wife said, "She was very opinionated for a therapist." I agreed. She asked if we could go get brunch and just talk, and I agreed to that too. We talked. I apologized for the way I spoke to her. She apologized for keeping secrets from me. I told her I would never be okay with her dad being part of our kids' lives. She said she understood. I also said I thought it was a bad idea to go back to the old company, but ultimately that's her choice. She said she was going to tell her dad that meeting the baby isn't on the table, and then see his reaction and go from there. I thanked her for telling me. She asked me if I was thinking about leaving her. I was honest and said I had thought about it, but that wasn't what I wanted. We both got very emotional. She asked if I loved her, and I said yes. I asked if she loved my son, and she said yes. I asked if she thinks she'll love the baby more, and she said no. She hesitated, but I'm trying not to read into that. I feel we made some progress and we will continue to work on our relationship without the terrible therapist, and try to be our best for each other and the children. Comment 1. Sounds like the therapist was the genius in this scenario. See her one time and you guys do what you weren't able to do before seeing her. Tempted to ask for a referral just in case I ever need it. Comment 2. I know you love your wife, but please look out for your son. Her father is a racist. His racism won't negatively impact her or the child you share, but it definitely will impact your son. I think she is saying what you want to hear at the moment, but I think this issue will come up again. Especially after your baby is born. She gave up her family for you and your son. She is already starting to show signs of cracking. I wouldn't be surprised if eventually she starts to resent you and your son for her not being able to see her father or have her child grow up with a loving albeit racist grandfather. The person with the potential to be hurt most is your son. I get your marriage is important, but protecting your son is more important now. For the next story. Am I the idiot for prioritizing my son's dog over my wife's pregnancy? When my son, 14, was 8, we got a dog. He's half Great Dane and half some dog my friend's dog met during an unauthorized absence. My son loves this dog and does all the care for him, except vet stuff, and is a very responsible dog owner. This dog is pretty much his best friend. My wife is 12 weeks pregnant, and ever since we confirmed the pregnancy she has been acting weird around the dog. She avoids him, puts her hands over her stomach when he is around and jolts whenever he makes noise. Today she told me she wants to rehome the dog. I asked her what she was talking about. She said she has been having anxiety that he will jump on her. This is completely unreasonable. He doesn't jump on people. We trained him not to jump on people or run into people very young because he is half Great Dane, and I felt this was important for all dogs, but especially one who could possibly grow to such a large size, which he did. There is no reason for her to think the dog will jump on her. She said that there is no way to know for sure that the dog won't jump on her, and if he does, our baby could be hurt. This dog has never so much as growled at her. She said even if the dog doesn't jump on her, her anxiety about it is bad for her health. She said she needs the dog elsewhere for her safety and the baby's. I told her that there was no way. My son got this dog right after he lost his mom and imprinted on him hard. Sometimes I think he loves the dog more than me. I'm not taking his dog. The dog didn't do anything. My wife said I am prioritizing the dog over her pregnancy. The dog isn't a threat to her pregnancy. If this were any other unreasonable request, I would just do it because she is pregnant. I just can't break my son's heart over a fear she has that makes no sense. Am I being an idiot? Now for a few comments before the update. Not the idiot. Animals are lifetime responsibilities. Pawning them off because she got pregnant would be a shitty thing to do. Comment 2. Not the idiot. Don't you dare give away your son's dog. He didn't ask for you to remarry and have a new child. Your son will never forgive you, or your new wife, if you allow her to continue to push this topic. She needs to actively work on coping with her anxiety. May I suggest therapy? Now for the update. We read some stuff about pregnant women developing sudden fear and hatred towards pets and how common this phenomenon is. Several people shared their personal stories on my original post, but I couldn't show her those because I didn't tell her about the original post. There were too many people saying mean things on it. But I found similar stories elsewhere online, and she found them reassuring. We've been training the dog on how to be around babies. Well, my son is training him. So far, a former coworker of mine and a neighbor have let me borrow their babies for an evening, and both times went really well. So we will continue to enforce appropriate baby behavior with the dog. My wife visited her OBGYN to discuss her fear and anxiety, and she again was reassured that many women face similar experiences when pregnant. She is going to start seeing someone to discuss her changing emotional state. She also decided she wants to spend as little time as possible with the dog for now. So we've all been accommodating that, and the dog is now spending the majority of his indoor time in my son's room instead of the living room when my wife is home. So far the dog doesn't mind, as he sleeps in there anyway, and that's where his best friend lives. Our home continues to be harmonious. I appreciate all the people who provided productive information and outlooks on the last post. Comment 1. Wait, did I read that correctly? A couple coworkers let you borrow their babies? That's amazing and made me laugh out loud. Also, good job handling the situation tactfully but also standing your ground. Thanks for the update. Comment 2. Yay. I'm glad she decided to be honest with professionals about all this instead of digging her heels in and forcing you to get rid of him. I have a Great Dane that has been around all my nieces and nephews as babies, and never once had he ever done anything to harm any of them. They're gentle giants, but I get people, including pregnant women, getting scared of their size. I truly hope she's able to get rid of this fear. Now, for the next story. Am I the idiot for letting my son go to Disneyland? I have a 6-year-old son, Jake, and we're currently staying with my brother, his wife, and their daughter, Abby, 17. Abby recently went through something really hard and traumatic. I feel for her with all my heart, and am doing all I can to be there for her. During this time, Abby's become really close to Jake. It was sweet enough at first, and even though Jake isn't one to sit in one place for long, he didn't say anything and allowed his cousin to cuddle and spend time with him. He does a lot for her and will wake her up when she takes naps for too long, will go out to the park with her to make sure she doesn't stay at home too long, etc. My sister-in-law was extremely appreciative of this, and Abby seems to be happier when he's around. Of course, Abby is in therapy, so I didn't think she was dependent on my son to get her through the day. But a couple weeks ago, Jake's paternal grandparents wanted to take him to Disneyland for a couple days and he was so excited. He kept telling everyone how much fun he was going to have and more. Abby didn't say much whenever he'd mentioned Disneyland, but my sister-in-law asked me if he was actually going multiple times. I said yes, why would I stop my son from going to Disneyland? She asked if his grandparents could take him on this trip another time, but I told her that wouldn't be possible. She was upset but stopped. The other day, his grandparents came to pick him up and he was sitting with Abby getting ready to go when she suddenly broke down crying. Jake got scared and started crying as well, so I separated them. They calmed down and Jake left for Disneyland some time later. My sister-in-law was furious. She came up to me and was like, "So you really let him go?" I said yes again, why wouldn't I? She was all like, "You saw how my daughter reacted to him leaving and you're still confused?" Apparently, Abby really didn't want him to go, and she cried because he was leaving. I told her that this was extremely unfair for her to say. My sister-in-law said that I was being unfair and that Disneyland is not more important than her daughter's well-being. I never said this, but I told her that my son isn't her emotional support dog, and while I'm very sorry about Abby, it isn't fair to put my 6-year-old son's life on pause. He's 6. It's unfair for her to force my son to give up things for the comfort of his cousin. Sister-in-law called me heartless and said she wants me gone from the house before Jake gets back because she isn't putting Abby through this again. My brother intervened and told her that she's acting irrationally, but she told him to STFU. It's been really tense, and while I did attempt to apologize, sister-in-law told me that the only apology she'd accept is one from Jake, but I'm not going to make him apologize, so am I the idiot? I really don't think so, but Abby is genuinely upset about Jake leaving. Edit. I was repeating my sister-in-law's words word for word but giving her the benefit of the doubt. I believe she meant that the only apology she'd accept is one in the form of Jake. Not that it makes it any better, but I don't think she actually wants him to say I'm sorry. But I could be wrong as well. Either way, I wasn't going to apologize the way she wanted me to. There's no updates, so here's the comments. Not the idiot. Abby has serious attachment issues. TBH, when Jake returns, I would look into staying elsewhere to separate the two of them before her attachment to Jake grows even less healthy. Comment 2. Not the idiot. I don't sympathize with adults who act like you must have the capability to read their minds. Sister-in-law had every chance in the world to use her words and explain any feelings she had. She didn't do that. And even if she had, you are under no obligation to put your son's life on pause for your niece's sake. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to drop a like. It really helps the channel grow. See you next time. Am I the idiot for telling my mom if she wants to plan a wedding to get remarried? I, female 32, recently started planning my wedding with my fiancé, female 31, and my mom immediately jumped to help us plan. I thought at first it'd be okay, but she will call vendors and vendors she likes. We'll give them my information, so they call me about a scheduled time and my mom swoops in to say, "It'd be rude not to go since they invited you." It was obvious it was her after the third time when she wouldn't stop giggling and admitted to calling beforehand and making appointments. I wouldn't take issue with this, but my mom and I have wildly different tastes. Every time me or my fiancé tell her something like how to have this color for the tablecloths or these flowers, she'll tell us that they look bad and will give us her own plan. She recently showed us a massive binder of different ideas she wants us to look through. It's exhausting. At every step she will insist on looking at her ideas, and when we reject them she'll throw a fit and tell me I don't love her because I ignore all her wishes. I also want to add, I think she's had it in her head since I was a kid she'd plan my wedding. Even before I came out and dated men, she'd comment on how excited she was for the wedding, And when I told her my fiancé proposed, she immediately started berating me about when we'd have the wedding so she could help us plan it. Part of it is that when she married my dad, it was a small courthouse affair because she was pregnant with me at the time and never got a proper wedding. My dad also died 17 years ago, and she dates sporadically but never for longer than a few months. The last time me and my fiancé went to see a venue, she tagged along and made all these comments on how gross everything was, pointing out all the tiny things wrong with it all. The person showing us was getting annoyed, my fiancé was getting annoyed, and so was I. She eventually said, "If this were my wedding, I'd never even consider this dump," despite it being absolutely beautiful and within the budget. I snapped and told her that if she wanted to plan a wedding so badly, she should get remarried. It was cruel, but I was so tired of her trying to have her perfect wedding through me. My fiancé thinks I'm not at fault, but the rest of my family doesn't. Am I the idiot? Edit. Adding answers to a couple common questions. Is she paying for the wedding? No, she's not paying a penny. Why don't you set boundaries with her? We have. She doesn't listen and will cry and guilt me and my fiancé until we go along with her or look at what she's picked out for us now. For a few comments before the update. Not the idiot. Cut that off. Tell her she is not welcome to come to any viewings. She is allowed to send you 1 email per week with her suggestions, but that is it. And that if she calls and makes appointments for you anywhere else, she is no longer invited to the wedding. For the rest of the family who are taking her side, tell them she is being unreasonable and they are welcome to get her help planning a party of their own. Comment 2. Not the idiot. But going forward, set some boundaries for your mom on what kind of help she can provide, and if she oversteps again, then that's when she needs to just be a guest. I had a friend get married a few years ago and her mom was like this. She ended up going with a venue that took care of everything: ceremony, caterers, DJ, bartenders, photographer, etc., so that her mom couldn't take everything over. Now for the update. Hello everyone, I took all of the advice to heart, and me and my fiancé had a sit down and looked at the comments together, and we agreed we both need to grow spines. Our wedding planner is truly a saint and had no problem setting up passwords with vendors like some people suggested, and it was a great suggestion, so thank you. We then invited my mom to dinner and told her that she has to stop trying to help us with the wedding. It started off bad as she brought her binder and had her own wedding dress in her car. Her dress is in very bad condition, would not fit either me or my fiancé, and is quite frankly hideous. I would never say that to her face, though I've told her every time she's asked that I want to pick out my own dress and she should keep hers for if she wants to get remarried. She assumed that we had invited her to apologize and let her plan the wedding however she wanted. How she jumped to that conclusion, I have no idea. We lied about not wanting her to get overly stressed in the hope she'd take it better than telling her that she's been causing problems and that she hasn't been helpful. She didn't take it well and started crying and saying all she ever wanted was for me to have the perfect wedding, and she'd already given up getting the perfect son-in-law and grandchildren, so at the least we could let her plan the wedding. It stunned us both as she has never said a bad word about me liking women, not when I came out, not when I got my first girlfriend, not when me and my fiancé got engaged. That put me over the edge, and I told her that she wasn't going to plan anything, she was a guest and nothing more, and I would be cutting her speech if she was going to behave like a child. She had a full-on tantrum, so me and my fiancé paid and left her to cry and scream in the restaurant. That was all fine and dandy until our florist called to tell us my mom had called to try and get the flower arrangements changed behind our back. I called her, and she tried to lie until she realized she was backed into a corner, and admitted to doing it because she knew what was best and was trying to help. Needless to say that I've now uninvited her from the wedding with the full support of my fiancé and my soon-to-be mother-in-law and father-in-law. Comment 1. I have to echo the comment about having security at the wedding. This sounds like a potential gate crasher if ever there was one. If it helps at all, I think you and your fiancé handled this like true pros. You reached out, got advice, and put it into effect in a fair, reasonable way. Your mom's reaction is not your fault. I physically cringed at that. I gave up the perfect son-in-law and grandchildren thing, and you handled that perfectly too. If she wants to make vile, hateful comments and whip up a circus in public, which is a pressure tactic people use when desperate to force their will on someone, the right thing to do is simply refuse to participate in her games. Thumbs up. Comment 2. Holy cow! She had to give up the perfect son-in-law and grandchildren? How the hell does she give up something that never existed or could ever belong to her? She's beyond the pale. Great that you uninvited her. Congratulations on your engagement. Now, for the next story. Am I the idiot for not taking care of my cousin's toddler? I, female 20, Went upstate to visit my extended family recently. Grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins. This includes my cousin, who had a baby about 3.5 years ago. My cousin will be named Carol and the baby will be named Lily for this post. I don't like children, never have, and possibly never will. My whole family knows this. So, I haven't really spent the most time with Lily when I visited. Surprisingly, she wasn't too bad the last few times I visited her and Carol along with my other family. However, this time Lily was an absolute hellspawn, screaming, crying, throwing tantrums along with things across the room. We were staying in the same house, so I heard it every day for a few days. I distanced myself from Carol and Lily as much as possible, other than the time I got mad at Carol, and a bit at Lily, when Lily was throwing a tantrum about something and threw my phone to the floor, cracking the corner of the screen. Carol said I was overreacting. Yesterday, I was watching television in the living room when Carol came into the room carrying Lily, who was fussing. She asked me to watch her for the day because she needed a break, but I wasn't so sure. As I said, I don't like kids in the first place, but I'm also not sure I could take care of one, especially one as bad as Lily. I explained this to Carol and she insisted I take care of Lily. I asked if anybody else can take Lily because I won't, and she told me everyone else was out shopping, and how I don't know how hard it is to be a mother, and the least I can do is help out. I told her I understand how she's struggling but reinstated my doubts on taking care of another human being. Carol called me heartless and stormed out of the room to go and take care of Lily herself. A little over 15 minutes later, everyone returned. Carol, of course, told them what I did and everyone was being cold to me for the rest of the day. This morning, I left because I was getting uncomfortable with how I was being treated and felt like I wasn't welcome because I wouldn't take care of Lily. This was met with sad or angry comments from some, but I left anyway. I'm writing this in a hotel because now I'm having second thoughts. Was I the AH for not taking care of Lily? Now for a few comments before the update. Not the idiot. Frankly, it's irresponsible of a parent to shove an unwitting person into that situation, especially if your aversion to kids is known throughout the family. One would assume you probably wouldn't have had a lot of experience with babies or toddlers and wouldn't really know how to care for one. It's like Carol thought. Who is the most ill-equipped person to care for my womb nugget? OP, yes, she'll do. My only babysitting requirements are a set of breasts, and a liability waiting to happen. Comment 2, not the idiot. There's probably a good reason the rest of the family bailed on Carol to go shopping. They didn't want to watch Lily either, or even have Lily join them, so they're deflecting the blame on you. Now for the update. Hi all. Thank you for your kind words. About a day after I got home, Carol sent me a text saying she apologizes for how she acted. She told me in the text how she's been feeling bad about the situation since I left. She acted out of bounds, was stressed but shouldn't have taken it out on me, and sorry she exaggerated the story to our family members. She finally asked if I would come back up north to come chat with her about it, along with the rest of the family. I declined because I had work and couldn't make the round trip, so we talked on the phone. She kept profusely apologizing for how she acted, and was trying to make amends. I was honestly shocked, but grateful. We made arrangements for a few months from now to meet up in person. On the more negative side, I haven't heard from the rest of the family as I'm writing this. I'm not sure if they're still mad, just ignoring me, or some other reason. I think it might be the latter as I asked Carol about it, and she's not even sure. Whatever it is, I hope they talk to me soon. Again, thank you. Comment 1. I don't understand the need to drive 3 hours for them to apologize. FaceTime works just as well. I'm so tired of the moms who use the "I need a break from my kids" as an excuse for someone else to watch them. These are usually the kids who aren't parented well and aren't used to a routine. There's no reason to subject someone else to another parent's failings. It's a big red flag and big fat no for me. Now, for the next story. Am I the idiot for telling my parents I am willing to sell them my forgiveness? My parents expected me to be independent the minute I turned 18. They gave me the money they had saved up for my education, and they started charging me rent. I was lucky enough to have a partial scholarship, and I found a job in the city my university was in, so I moved there before the school year began. With my parents' money, my scholarship, and my wages, I was able to scrape by. I rarely if ever spoke with my parents. I was kind of busy. I guess they decided that they didn't want that kind of relationship with my younger siblings because they were not presented with the same option. They both lived at home all through university, and even afterwards. I am 34 now with a decent job and a great girlfriend whom I will be marrying this summer. I sent my parents and siblings an invitation. They called me to ask why they were not involved in the wedding. I responded that they hadn't really been part of my life in 16 years and that I was being nice by inviting them. They said that they acknowledged that they made mistakes when I was young and that it was in the past, and that I should get over it. Against my fiancé's advice, I sent them an itemized bill for everything I paid for myself that they freely gave my brother and sister. I said if they wanted to be a part of my life they had to ante up. They said that they cannot afford that because they are in debt still from helping my siblings out. I laughed at that and said I hoped that I would see them at the wedding and hung up. My family are all getting a hold of me to let me know how much I'm hurting my parents. The thing is that I don't want their money. And I don't want anything from them at all other than their attendance at my wedding. If they can't do that, then I'm fine with our yearly phone call. Am I the idiot? There's no updates, so here's the comments. Not the idiot. Maybe the itemized bill was a bit much, but I imagine it was cathartic for you. Your parents haven't been around in a decade and a half. They have a lot of nerve to ask to be involved. Not being involved in your wedding is just reaping what they sowed. Congratulations on your upcoming wedding. Comment 2. The crux of the matter is the unfairness of treatment between OP and his siblings. It's not really the money. Presenting the bill was really giving the parents a big old serving of humble pie. Clearly OP doesn't really expect or hope that his parents would make financial amends. Congratulations on your upcoming wedding, OP, not the idiot.